The aura of America's leading biggest brands falling abroad as anti-U.S. sentiment climbs. A record $1.7 billion Powerball jackpot raises the question, who really pays for America's lottery obsession? A global study shows young people are now the most unhappy generation in history. Ross Ulbricht, the dark web kingpin behind Silk Road, is back on stage with crypto's elite. And Ezra Klein, the top columnist at the New York Times, stuns Washington by urging Democrats to shut down the government. All that and more. Welcome to Filtered with TJ Walker. So happy you could join me today. It is Sunday, and we are taking a look at the top stories of the day, as we do every day right here on Filtered. In issue one, America's brands are under fire abroad. Major American brands are sounding the alarm about rising anti-American sentiment overseas. According to Newsweek, companies like McDonald's, Levi's, and Jack Daniel's parent, Brown-Forman, are warning that President Trump's tariffs are fueling consumer backlash abroad. McDonald's CEO Chris Kempczinski told CNBC the aura around America has dimmed a bit, noting an 8 to 10 point increase in anti-American sentiment, especially in Northern Europe and Canada. Levi's, in a regulatory filing, cited, quote, rising anti-Americanism as a consequence of the Trump tariffs and governmental policies as a direct risk to its sales. Brown-Forman reported a 62% decline in Canadian sales, blaming both trade disputes and provincial bans on U.S. spirits. They make whiskey. And Beyond Meat has warned that anti-American sentiment could materially affect its global operations. Marketing experts say brands most closely tied to U.S. identity, jeans, whiskey, Coca-Cola, Nike, are most at risk if consumers shift to local or European alternatives. Okay, so what's the real message here? This idea of we're Americans, take it or leave it, do it our way, pay us tariffs, we don't need you, isn't working with a lot of the world. They're saying, okay, take it or leave it. You know what? We'll leave it. And this is hurting American brands. So many Americans forget the fact that the reason America is rich is the rest of the world wants to buy our stuff. They like our jeans. They like our liquor. They like our movies. They like our culture. That's what's made us rich, is money flowing in from around the world. So when we tell people, you know, we don't want your stuff anymore, they can retaliate. It can be tit for tat, and that can hurt our bottom line. Okay, let's go a little deeper here. This is an issue I talked about last week. Levi's sounding the warning officially in their regulatory postings in Great Britain, saying, hey, we see our sales going down because our consumers don't like the American brand anymore. Now, this talks about even more stories. Liquor companies, meat, food companies are talking about this. This is having an impact. And as I said last week, and I'll say it again today, conservatives were right. Conservatives have been warning us, libertarians have been warning us for years that if you give some dictator a lot of power to regulate every aspect of the private sector and the public sector, all sorts of unintended consequences can happen. And it can really screw up the economy. Conservatives have been telling us this. The Heritage Foundation, the Cato Institute, they've all been saying it. And it turned out they were right. Now, the irony, of course, is the very person they're supporting and putting in power is the one who's doing all of this now. That's what's truly bizarre about the current situation, is we are seeing American brands tarnished, American businesses harmed, American stakeholders hurt in their pocketbook because of government policies, big government policies, arguably socialist policies coming out of Washington, D.C. It's starting to have an impact. Now, let's be clear. Is the country in a recession yet? No. Am I predicting a recession in the next month? No, I'm not in the recession prediction business. But don't listen to me. Don't listen to somebody on YouTube or social media or TikTok. Don't listen to even politicians, but you do need to listen to publicly traded corporations, their investor relations department, their CFOs when they put out warnings, when they put out revenue warnings, and they're saying, "Hey, we're warning you, investors, you're going to see our sales go down. You're going to see our profits go down." We don't want to have to say this, but by law, we have to say that, or we are in violation of the Securities and Exchange Commission. So that you cannot ignore. Yes, there's all sorts of partisan spin on CNN and Fox News Channel. There's even spin on CNBC. But when it comes to major publicly traded corporations telling their investors, you're going to see downturns in our sales, our revenues, our profits, because our own customers around the world are telling us they are sick and tired of the American brand because they associate it with bullying and obnoxiousness. You really can't ignore that. You can say you don't like it, but you can't ignore it as a credible source. And that's really what's going on here in this story. Let's look at a few more facts here. Point in fact, tariffs don't just raise prices, they poison America's brand around the world. Companies, entrepreneurs, individuals, family-owned businesses around the world are being destroyed overnight because of these whimsical, capricious tariffs that have been put on them. Corporate logos are becoming collateral damage in America's trade wars. McDonald's reports an 8 to 10 point rise in anti-American sentiment in Europe and Canada. It doesn't get much more American than McDonald's, and McDonald's is pretty much everywhere. I've personally worked in, not just visited, worked in more than 45 countries, and I don't think I've ever been to one that didn't have a McDonald's. People do associate that with America. Levi's is listing anti-Americanism as a key financial risk in its most recent SEC filings. Jack Daniel's sales down 62% in Canada. Somehow, I guess enough Canadians didn't think it was cute when our dear leader said, let's make Canada the 51st state. They somehow take their sovereignty seriously. Who knew? Beyond Meat warns of lost revenue because of consumer backlash. And the federal courts have ruled that many tariffs were illegally imposed, but they're still in place because the Supreme Court gets to review it. And if you're following the Supreme Court in the United States, they basically bend over to the president and say, do whatever you want. Do whatever you want that feels good. And we're just going to sit here and say thank you. That's the state of the current Supreme Court, which by many estimates is no better than attorneys hired at a local, county courthouse in New York City, where someone just went through waving $100 bills and went after ambulance chasers and said, who wants money, and we'll do whatever we say. I mean, that's kind of how the modern Supreme Court in the United States is perceived, I believe, by most thoughtful observers. They're no longer justices. They are lackeys. I'm TJ Walker. I want to thank you for spending some time with me on a Sunday morning. It's a beautiful Sunday morning here in South Florida. As soon as I finish the show, I'm headed out to play pickleball before it gets too hot. Hoping you have a great Sunday morning. And I'm glad you're spending time here with me today instead of Meet the Press and some of the older, stodgier shows that can sometimes give good information, but often are too rigid in the stories they look at and how they approach the news. If you're new to this show, let me give you a little background on what we're doing here. Every day, 7 days a week, I look at the top stories of the day and then filter it through the lens of communication skills, personal development skills, all with the goal of helping you become more successful. So the real lesson here is you've always got to look at unintended consequences, no matter what you do. If you're saying, oh, I want to be tough on people and raise tariffs, you have to ask yourself, Is this really going to hurt my people over here in the long run even more? If I'm whining constantly about how unfair the world is, do I have enough self-awareness to stop and look and think, maybe the world is unfair, but maybe it's unfair in my favor. If the world is so unfair against Americans, then why do millions of people want to move to America? I mean, that's the odd thing that so many of these people who are so anti-immigrant these days never ask themselves. They're holding two very contradictory ideas in their head at once. On the one hand, the whole world is so against us and unfair to poor America and being unfair to our products and giving us unfair taxes on the one hand. On the other hand, it's so great here, everyone wants to move here. Well, if the whole world were beating us up, no one would want to move here. This would be the worst place in the world, right? Obviously, that's not the case when every single day we see millions of people around the world wanting to move to the United States. They want to move here because all things being equal, notwithstanding what's happened in the last 8 months, this is still, at least for the time, marginally the best or one of the best countries to come, start a career, start a business, raise venture capital, try to be successful. How much longer that will be the case, I don't know. But that's why people want to come here, is because it frankly is easier. There is more opportunity than a lot of older democracies or countries that have just gotten out of dictatorship or theocracy or monarchy. We do, again, until recently, at least have more openness, more opportunity. People want to come here. We should protect and preserve what we have, not put up more roadblocks, more walls, keeping out the very people who made this country great. More in a moment. We'll be back after these commercial words. We'll be right back after this break. Want more? Grab my 5-book success library for $9.95 at tjwalker.com/books. It's the fastest way to level up your communication. Imagine being the most confident person in the room, whether you're on Zoom or on stage. That's what thousands of professionals are learning to do right now through my online communication courses. At Media Training Worldwide, you can access my complete training library on demand, affordable, and actually effective. Whether you're preparing for media interviews, client presentations, or TED-style talks, I've got you covered. Check it out, MediaTrainingWorldwide.com. You'll never wing it again. Want to advertise here? You better be legit. No crypto, no junk food, no supplements. Go to tjwalker.com/advertise. Issue 2, the $1.7 billion jackpot and America's lottery addiction. 2 winning tickets, one in Missouri and one in Texas, will split the $1.787 billion Powerball jackpot. It's the second largest in U.S. history, according to the New York Times. Billion-dollar jackpots have become so far more common after changes to Powerball and Mega Millions raised ticket prices and tweaked the odds. But behind the headlines is a sobering truth. Lotteries are funded by those who can least afford it. Americans spend about $100 billion a year on lottery tickets, more than on movies. That's bizarre to me. More than on music and sporting events combined. For many lower-income households, lottery spending is striking. Families making less than $30,000 a year spend around $400 annually on tickets, roughly 1% to 2% of their income. For some, that's the equivalent of a month's worth of groceries. And psychology plays a role. Media saturation fuels recency bias. People overestimate their odds after hearing about a winner. Familiarity bias keeps the dream alive as jackpots dominate headlines. As Ambrose Bierce, the great writer, once put it, lotteries are, quote, a tax on the ignorant. Apologies if that sounds condescending. He said it, not me. Okay, let's get to what's really significant here. What's the real message here? Every day we see more and more headlines about lottery, bigger lottery, winnings, $1 billion. As soon as it's going to be trillions of dollars, it's all a scam to take money out of your pocket. Sorry if this offends you. Only stupid people play the lottery. Save your own money. Invest in something where you're guaranteed to win, yourself or a real company with real stock. This, let's go a little deeper. This is an issue that irks me, and it's a contradictory issue in many ways. People love to talk about how negative the media is, the negativity bias of the media only talks about bad news. The lottery is an example, and that's not the case. Because, I mean, even in the New York Times, which is supposedly so negative all the time, today, front page story about these two winning tickets, people winning $1 billion Powerball. So they only put a spotlight on the winner. They don't do a story on the millions of people who lost their kids' lunch money. That's a bias, and that's a bias the media has on winners. It also is a bias on one story. You can do one story about one person whose life has changed, although it's been studied a great deal. The lives of lottery winners don't really change much if you come back to them a couple of years later. They've basically pissed away all their money and are back where they started from, often unhappier than before. But still, it is a story to talk about one person who worked at a gas station, won $1 billion, and now all these good things happen and they can buy everything and quit their job. If you're a journalist, you can write a story like that. You cannot knock on the door of every single person in the community who spent $2 or $5 or $25 and spent their kids' milk money buying a lottery ticket. It's not possible to write a story like that. So it doesn't get written. It doesn't get on YouTube. It doesn't get on TikTok. It doesn't get anywhere. So we don't think about it. It's kind of the same way where, so many people go to the beach. Oh, we got to be careful. There could be sharks out there. Let's look for sharks. More people are killed by far from a mosquito than ever killed from a shark. More people are killed from pigs than sharks, but we see it on TV or we hear about it. We get excited about it. And yet no one's worried about the drive to the beach, even though 1.2 million people a year die in car crashes. So as a human species, we worry about the wrong things. We assess risk in faulty ways. And we somehow think it's not risky to spend money on it's just for fun. If I win, great. If not, it's a little bit of money. Again, let's look at the statistics, because according to some research, many families making under $30,000 a year are spending $400 annually on tickets. Again, 1% to 2% of their income. You look at that over 20 years, the lifespan of the children being at home. Now you got $8,000. If that $8,000 had been invested early in a worker's life, we're talking about hundreds of thousands of dollars by the time someone retired. That can be the difference between a meaningful retirement, a somewhat comfortable retirement, and living in poverty, perhaps homelessness, because of these. So it's not insignificant. Am I saying you're going to be a rich multimillionaire just by not playing the lottery? No. But I am saying, why let other people play you? Why be the easy mark? And that's what you are if you play the lottery. And for that matter, pretty much any gambling in a casino. You're an easy mark. You are a sucker. You might as well walk around with a giant T-shirt that says, I'm a sucker willing to give you my money for nothing in return. So that's why I want to talk about it today and put a spotlight on it, because it's not harm. It seems like harmless fun. And any one $2 ticket, sure, you could make the case it is harmless. We all waste money on something. We all spend some money on entertainment, but can't you find something more entertaining? Buy a book, read the book, give the book to someone else, give hours of actual joy, intellectual enrichment, instead of buying a ticket and scratching off or waiting for that number to be called out. it may give you joy, but that's some of the lowest levels of joy. But TJ, my uncle won $10,000 3 years ago. Yeah, but your uncle spends $1,000 a month on lottery tickets and has now lost every penny of that 10,000, and there's another 10,000 in the hole. Everybody forgets to talk about that. So it's a human bias. We all suffer. We like to focus on the winnings. We like to focus on that one story, and then the incremental dripping out, the bleeding ourselves dry of our wallet, of our net worth. That doesn't get covered. A couple of other facts I want to look at. Again, this number, $100 billion spent on lotteries, it's too big to even visualize. It's huge and it's obscene. And I'm proud to say, with all the things I've done to waste money in my life, of all the dumb business ideas, and I've had plenty of dumb businesses. I had 7 different radio shows go belly up in the 1990s. I had websites go belly up. So believe me, I have plenty of experience doing dumb things with my money, but at least I was investing in myself. At least I was investing in my own businesses, my own dreams, my own vision. When you invest money in a lottery, you're investing in someone else's vision. And let me tell you whose vision it is. It's a slick, slimy politician who says, hey, I got to pay for these stupid kids' school, and I don't want to pay taxes, and I don't want to go to my rich contributors and get them to pay tax. In fact, I want to pander to my richest contributors and tell them, hey, I'm going to cut your taxes, and I'm going to stick it to the poor, stupid people in our state. And we're just going to tell them that their lottery is going to pay education, when really we're just taking money away from that pot to put over in this pot. So that's who you're supporting. You're supporting cynical politicians. That's why in the last 40 years, we've seen states go from, nope, we're not going to have a lottery. That's immoral. That's gambling. A lot of states with religious right leaders and some with Democrats who cared about poor people were the same. Nope, we're not going to do it. We're not going to have a lottery. Nope. Where are they now? They're all like, yes, we want a lottery. Yes, we want a lottery. Absolutely. Give us that lottery cash. That's what's happened in state after state after state in America. And the result is we've taxed wealthier people like me a lot less, and we've taxed poor people a lot more, but you don't call it a tax. Oh, it's not a tax. It's not an income tax. It's just we're going to put enough ads on local sports shows and local news shows bombarding you, reminding you, you can be a millionaire if you buy the lottery. And that's what happens. So some more stats. The 2 tickets split this $1.7 billion Powerball prize on September 6th. Over a dozen jackpots have topped $1 billion since 2016, and that's supposed to get us excited. We're supposed to think, oh, wow, if the pot's that big, I might as well get in. Well, no, that's a reason to not get in. That means your odds go down because more people are playing. The biggest jackpot ever was $2.04 billion in California, 2022. And I'm sorry to see California is just as bad, worse than all these other states that are doing it. And the jackpots turn into media spectacles and tourist stops. People start going into other states to get these lottery tickets. And it's frankly a bit of a scam, and it's a bit of a shame. Sangam writes in, what are the sureties of lottery that you played? I'm not sure I understand the question, Sangam, so please feel free to write in again. By the way, if you're listening to this on any podcasting service, thank you. This is a brand new podcast. This is episode 7 of our podcast. Glad you're here. And if you're watching it on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitch, and to our friends on TikTok, thank you for joining us live. We are available on demand every day. As soon as we finish the live show, it's instantly distributed as a feed, unedited, so you get the full thing. But if you ever want to join us live and ask questions, you can do so, as Sangam is doing right now. He's saying rectangle, triangle, circle are the only options. Hook, line, and sinker. Surety. guarantee. Not I'm still, and perhaps that's my ignorance because I've never played the lottery. I don't really know. I know there's some things that scratch off, some things you pick numbers, but I don't really know. I think all of this lottery stuff, frankly, is nonsense and poison and is an excuse to not try to figure out how to create value in the world. It's asking for something for nothing. Now, you can say rich people want something for nothing. They're always wanting an extra tax break. They always want some government handout. Nobody's a bigger corporate welfare queen than Elon Musk. He's gotten so many billions of dollars of federal subsidies and tax benefits. So I'm not suggesting in any way that poor people, lower income people, people with incomes of $30,000 or less are uniquely looking for some handout or grift. But I do think it's a part of this mentality where our society says, I deserve something for nothing. You do not deserve to win the lottery. What you deserve is an opportunity to use your talents to get some kind of an education, to create a product or service, put it in the marketplace, and be compensated for it. Whether you work for a big company, a government, your own company, a startup, that is what you deserve. So Sangham's talking about their derivatives in U.S. lottery. Again, I know what derivatives are, but I have no idea what you're talking about. We're going to come back and talk about a related subject to this in just one moment, and it relates to, unfortunately, some sad news about the state of young people in America. Hey, if you're enjoying this kind of take and want to hear more stories filtered through the lens of communication, make sure you're following the show, whether you're watching or listening. New episodes drop every single day. And if there's a little notification option where you are now, go ahead and turn it on. It helps you stay in the loop. Okay, we are back. In issue 3 today on Filtered, young people are now the unhappiest generation. For decades, psychologists believe happiness followed a U shape. People started relatively content, hit a low in middle age, and then rebounded in older age. But new research overturns that idea. According to one study in PLOS1, analyzing 1.7 million people across 44 countries, young adults are now the most distressed group, while older adults report better mental health. In the United States, despair among people under 25 has more than doubled, rising from 2.9% in 1993 to as high as 8% in recent years. That's a huge jump. Among young women, the numbers are worse, jumping from 3.2% in 1993 to 9.3% today. That's a tripling. Researchers cite smartphones, social media, economic pressures, and cuts to mental health care as major drivers. David Blanchflower of Dartmouth College, who led the study, noted that one of the most consistent, striking, persistent patterns in social science has now completely disappeared. The result, a reversal of expectations. Happiness now rises with age, but collapses for the young. Okay, what are we to make of this? What's the real message here where young people, not just in the United States, but around the world, are now some of the unhappiest people in the entire world? Young people get attacked for being lazy and wanting to have a whole world handed to them, being babies. But part of the problem, frankly, is people like me, baby boomers. We've taken all the goodies for ourselves. We took free and really cheap education for ourselves. We took really inexpensive housing for ourselves. We took the best opportunities for ourselves. We took the clean air and good temperatures of the earth for ourselves. And what do we leave young people with? Lots of debt, government debt, lots of astronomically high prices for housing, and entry to jobs not there. So that's part of why they're so depressed. Let's dig a little deeper here. It's always tricky to generalize by age, but these are some pretty sound research findings. Again, it was done a massive survey across 44 nations. And it wasn't a minor statistical blip. It was pretty significant. One of the theories is young people are spending so much time staring at their phone. And I've got my phone right here because we're live broadcasting to our friends on TikTok. But when you are on Instagram and when you're on all these social media feeds, everything seems better than your own life. Everyone seems more glamorous. Everyone seems more beautiful. Everyone seems like they're in a more exciting locale. Everyone has a nicer car, a prettier boyfriend, girlfriend, spouse than you do. Everyone's just returned from a better vacation than what you had. And there is a theory that it's just annoying people and depressing people and making them feel like, wow, my life is insignificant. I can't measure up. How does this guy who's a friend of mine have a Ferrari? He's 22, and I can't afford bus fare, much less go out on a date. Yeah, I'm depressed. That's what the thinking is. And I have to think there's something to that. We as human beings, by nature, compare to others. And when you live in a tribe of 150 people, maybe one person has, 3 more cows than you do, and you only have 1 cow, and you might think, well, it'd be nice to have 3 cows, but the difference isn't that much. But now we live in a world where if you're good looking, bright, successful, making money, you got to literally spend 8 hours a day looking at people who are 1,000 times better looking than you, have more money than you, more stuff than you. You got a 200-foot yacht, they got a 500-foot yacht. And once you go down that track of looking, it's hard to turn back. It's hard not to feel that envy. And it's human nature. Look, I'm not perfect. I'm no better than anyone else. But what I try to do is really limit my consumption. One of the best things I ever did was about 8 years ago. I said to myself, I'm going to give myself a strict 15-minute time limit for social media, unless I'm doing something actively for work. I'm looking to do research on a client, or in the case today, I'm actively looking for a story to present for my newscast. I'm going to limit myself to 15 minutes a day of social media consumption. And I'm going to spend the rest of my time doing things like reading an actual real book, going for a walk for an hour. Does that make me better than you? No. Does that mean I have better moral character than you? No. It's simply a decision I made because I'm selfish. I want to do what's best for me. And it was best for me. And I would urge you, if check your stats on your phone. How much time are you spending on social media? Because it could be a contributor to distress and depression. Let's look at some more stats. The suicide rates among U.S. teens rose 70% between 2008 and 2020. You know what else rose between 2008 and 2020? Smartphone came in play, came in 2007, but by 2010 is when the mass adoption rates really hit. Antidepressant use has surged. So I'm not here to tell you antidepressants are bad, but I would ask you to think about one thing. I've seen a lot of clinical evidence showing this, that if you just do physical exercise, some vigorous physical exercise, it's as effective or more effective than taking antidepressants. I'm not telling you not to take your antidepressants, but a lot of these things are linked. Kids who used to go outside and play, whether they're 10 years old and playing in the dirt or 15 years old and going for a bike ride, kids used to spend a lot more time outside playing. Now, if you're at home staring at a cell phone, a lot less physical activity, a lot easier to get depressed, a lot easier to think, oh, the solution is take this pill. Whereas the solution might actually be put your phone down, go out for a walk, go play kickball, go to the gym, go with the old fogies like me and play pickleball. Do anything other than sitting on your butt, staring at cell phones even more. And I realize some of you could say, well, TJ, that's a bit thick, a bit rich coming from you. I'm looking at you right now on my cell phone and you're making money from that. Okay, you got me. I'm a part of the problem too, because I'm creating content. I do want you to watch, but the whole purpose of this show is to empower you. I'm hoping by looking at the news through the filter of communication skills and personal development skills, it's actually empowering you to become more successful and happier in your life, not depressed. Because one of the things that is consistent among old people, especially old people who are happy, is the thought that, wow, I didn't realize how good I had it when I was young, because you have better health, you generally sleep better, your health is usually better, you look a lot better. I mean, when I look at my face today versus what I looked like at 20, boy, it would be great to go back to those days. And most young people, they might not be rich, but most of them don't have a lot of debt, although the college debt is wretched. I do think that, as I mentioned at the top of this segment, what people my generation, boomers, have done to colleges is horrific. When I went to college, the school I went to was a private school. It was expensive, but my total all-in fees were $7,500 a year, and that was for a quality education. And I graduated with $10,000 in debt, so I had to pay, I think it was $295 a month for 10 years. It was pretty minimal. But when I look at so many kids today graduating with six-figure debt, sometimes $250,000, how could you not be depressed? It doesn't have to be that way. Universities could make their courses much more affordable, in part by letting in a lot more students. No one has been more eloquent about this than the commentator Scott Galloway, the NYU professor, who rightly points out that the Harvards, Yales, the Princetons of the world they no longer deserve to be called nonprofit institutes of higher education. They're luxury brands. They're basically hedge funds that also teach a few classes. And what they really ought to be doing is expanding their freshman class to 100,000 students a year and reducing prices. And that would have a trickle-down effect on the rest of the educational establishment, because it's an ugly scene right now. The way colleges have simply, again, they've borrowed the tactics of Louis Vuitton, saying, we can just charge higher prices, and then people will think we're more prestigious and more selective, which will allow us to charge higher prices again and again and again. And that's what's happened in education. And yeah, a lot of university presidents can make $1, $2, $3, $4 million a year. And a lot of administrators, where no one really knows what they do, are making $500,000 a year. But does that actually benefit any young student starting off in life now with massive debt? No, it doesn't. In fact, it's downright depressing. Filtered is brought to you by the following. Want to advertise here? You better be legit. No crypto, no junk food, no supplements. Go to tjwalker.com/advertise. Want to become a better speaker, leader, or communicator? Start with the TJ Walker Success Library. It's 5 of my most practical books, covering everything from public speaking to media interviews and persuasive messaging, all for only $9.95. I've trained presidents and Fortune 500 CEOs, and now you can get the same wisdom in a fast, affordable format. Go to tjwalker.com/books and download your copies instantly. Thanks for listening. If you like today's episode, you'll love my online courses at MediaTrainingWorldwide.com. Check them out now and level up your skills. We are back. This is Filtered with TJ Walker, episode 6, I believe. Having a great time. We're starting our first full week of the show today. This is our second week. We launched on Wednesday. Having a great time with it. If you're new to the show, again, what we're all about, it's different. It's unlike any other news show I'm aware of. We look at the top 5 stories of the day and then analyze them, filter them through the lens of communication skills and personal development skills, all with the goal of helping you improve and be more successful in your personal life and your professional life. We look at the top business, technology, economic, and cultural stories of the day. A few more comments have come in. Festus says, nobody deserves to win a lottery. Oh, TJ, that is the hardest punch I ever heard on the topic lottery. Hey, I call it like I see it. I realize some of my views are not going to be popular, but I am going to call it like I see it. I don't partake in it, but I wonder how many people who are fully into it will think about this statement. Well, some of them won't like it, and they might not watch me again. That's okay. I can tell you right now, if you only watch people you agree with 100% of the time, you're not learning anything. And you're kind of sort of not the sort of person I want watching this show. I want you to be challenged. And I want you to challenge me too. Do it in the comments. And sometimes we have people live and callers go right on the show as well. So please feel free to challenge me. And Festus, I very much appreciate you being here today. Sangeeta also writing in, talking about the lottery, says you need curvy architecture that solves the despair. I'm not sure I understand. If you couldn't sculpt a better thing than what you have, your education is not complete. Sanga also says, I'm thankful to an American Uber driver who said, the probability of error was the square number of eyes observing it, okay? Fear is natural, but that's what keeps us alive. But sometimes you just drink it on your own. Everything is fuel, not just oil from pounding sand. So, Sang, let us know where you are from, by the way. You mentioned an American Uber driver. So let us know where you are. What do you think about free energy? Well, the sun is free energy. I'm all in favor of solar power. Water power to an extent is too. So I'm all in favor of that. We're going to dive right in now to issue 4. Ross Ulbricht's strange comeback tour. According to the New York Times, Ross Ulbricht, the creator of the Silk Road dark web marketplace, once sentenced to life, has reemerged as a cross-country speaking tour after receiving a presidential pardon in January. At Bitcoin 2025 in Las Vegas, he told supporters, I have been in an alien world for a long time. Now this world is alien to me. Ulbricht has leaned on powerful crypto allies, amassing roughly $31 million in digital asset donations and raising about $1.3 million at an auction of personal items, including his prison ID. The comeback has outraged many involved in the original case and families tied to drug deaths linked to Silk Road. A disgrace, said Sydney Bridge, whose son died after taking a drug bought on the site, per the Times. Judge Catherine Forrest once called Ulbricht's actions terribly destructive to our social fabric. Ulbricht is also exploring ways to reshape his story, working on a memoir, and the Times reports attempting to control a forthcoming documentary that includes extensive prison interviews. Okay, what's the real message here? Ross Ulbricht has gone from a lifetime conviction to being a superstar on stage and a celebrated person, all because of the power of money. He and his friends have so much money, they have been able to bribe officials in power to spring him loose. And it shows absolute contempt for all the people who died using his platform from drug deals, the remaining family members who have to deal with the grief of their children who died, and realize here is this guy who was part of a big drug dealing maze, this Silk Road platform he created, and he gets to go scot-free. And it shows essentially the end of the whole idea of law of order in the United States. It goes against the whole idea of crime not paying, because crime does pay now, and it pays really well. Let's dig a little deeper. You know, one of the problems in our current era of the last 9 months is it's hard to focus on any one outrage when every single fiber of our democracy is being pulled apart. Every aspect of the rule of law is being torn to shreds. Every single norm and protocol is being disintegrated. So something like this doesn't even get a lot of attention, but I did want to bring attention to it, of how you can simply bribe your way out of prison. I mean, imagine if this were, 55 years ago or so, and Charles Manson had started his own meme coin, and the meme coin crowd just loved Charles Manson, and they're like, "Hey, President, we like Charlie." So he killed a whole bunch of people. So he murdered a whole bunch of people. What's the big deal? We're all making money off the Charles Manson meme coin. He's got the funny little thing and the the little swastika on his head. It looks great on a coin. We're all getting rich. Please, Mr. President, can you just give Charlie a fair shake? Give Charlie a pardon. He'll be great on the lecture circuit. He'll bring in a ton of people to the next Bitcoin conference. I think that's what we would have had if the current mentality of our current leadership were in power 55, 60 years ago, when Charles Manson was running around murdering people and put in prison, given life in prison. I think he'd be out like that if Charlie had been smart enough to start a meme coin or some kind of cryptocurrency nonsense. So bad news here. These are some serious bad vibes, some serious bad people, and they are being held up as pillars of our new society. Imagine having a communication coach who never sleeps. Meet your new secret weapon, the TJ Walker AI clone. Go to tjwalker.ai and start getting custom coaching 24/7. No scheduling, no hourly fees. I've trained presidents, prime ministers, and Fortune 500 CEOs, but the same exact communication I've delivered to world leaders is now available to you online, anytime at MediaTrainingWorldwide.com. Whether you're speaking on camera, pitching a client, or handling a crisis, you need these tools. These aren't fluffy motivational videos. They're practical, battle-tested techniques to help you speak clearly, competently, and persuasively. Go to MediaTrainingWorldwide.com and take your communication to the next level. Got feedback or a question for me? I actually read them, and if you send one, I'll send you a free mini course as a thank you. Just head to tjwalker.com/feedback. Ever wish you could just ask me your question live? Now you can. Every week I go live with members only. On YouTube, it's called TJ Live. I review pitches, fix presentations, and answer your questions on the spot. It's interactive, personal, and hands-on. If you want real-time coaching in a small group setting, go to tjwalker.com/live and become a member. This isn't passive content. It's a two-way conversation. Want to make sure we stay connected even if YouTube deletes me again? Join my newsletter at substack.com/@TJWalkerSuccess. It's free, fast, and packed with exclusive insights. We are back. Issue 5. Ezra Klein says, don't fund this government. Now, this is a stunner. This made me almost fall out of my chair this morning reading it. The New York Times lead columnist Ezra Klein says Democrats should refuse to fund the government later this month. In his column, Stop Acting Like This Is Normal, Klein argues that a routine spending bill would fund Trump's autocratic takeover, adding, quote, I don't see how they can do it. Klein says March's logic, that's when the Democrats did back the continuing operations of the government. They could have shut it down there. The logic in March no longer applies. The Supreme Court is deferring to the president. Doge's shock therapy is morphing into consolidation, and markets aren't forcing a course correction. A shutdown, he argues, is an intentional event that forces the country to confront what he calls authoritarianism happening. His prescription: if Democrats won't shut it down, they must at least set clear, narrow demands. Restore watchdogs, stop masks raids, curb self-dealing, and hold the line. Otherwise, he says, voting for a clean, continuing resolution is complicity. Klein's bottom line: if there's a better plan than a shutdown, let's hear it right now. Okay, what's the real message here? Ezra Klein says the Democrats have to shut down the federal government, not vote to extend the debt ceiling. At first, I thought this was crazy, but more than I think about it, I think he is 100% correct. Americans need to wake up and realize this is an absolute slow-moving and sometimes fast-moving coup. This is Donald Trump having a complete authoritarian takeover of the government, and anything that can stop it, anything that can put a wrench in the machinery to stop it is a good thing. We can't take one more day of him taking over citizens with masked thugs, of enriching himself with more crypto schemes, of him using the Department of Justice to terrorize everyone who criticizes him. If it takes shutting down the government, that is a price we need to pay. Okay, so let's go a little deeper here, because this is a serious matter. This is a very, very serious matter. And it's typically always the Democrats who have to be the grown-ups in the room. The Republicans like to posture of, so I'm voting to make our government leaner and more efficient. I'm not going to vote to increase the debt limit. And in fairness, Barack Obama did that one time when he was a senator. But it's been mostly a Republican tactic. And Ezra Klein says it's one of the few levers of power that the Democrats have. So here's what's happening is the House is controlled by the Republicans. The United States Senate is controlled by the Republicans, but it's very small margins. And in order to repeal the debt ceiling and make it a higher ceiling so the government can keep paying its bills, it requires 60 votes in the United States Senate. Well, that can't happen without at least a handful of Democrats. So this is one of the few areas anywhere in public life where Democrats do have some power. They don't control the White House. They don't control the administration. They don't control the Supreme Court. They don't control the House. They don't control the Senate. They don't control most governorships, but they do have power in this one issue. So maybe it's time they use it. That's the thinking. So Klein's point is this is a chance for the Democrats to get the attention of the whole country. Because right now, things are swirling out of control every day, whether it's Epstein files, whether it is the government trying to take over the Panama Canal, which we haven't heard much about recently, thankfully, the National Guard going to Chicago and LA and New Orleans. It's one atrocity after another. The president enriching himself with numerous crypto scams, the constant daily onslaught of foreign countries trying to get on the good side of Trump with bribes, whether they're giving him planes or trying to build hotels in his name. Every single day, it's not one, it's often dozens of crimes that in any other presidency, any other era, Republican, Democrat, Whig, you name it, would have resulted in pretty much instant impeachment, not just tried, but convicted in the Senate. It would have resulted in that, and it has become so normalized. So Klein's point is, we got to just put a stop to this. And if it means causing a massive pain, massive disruption by shutting down the government, it's going to be worth the price. But what Klein does point out is the Democrats had better be able to explain themselves. Because if it's one thing Donald Trump is good at, it's explaining things in simple terms to convince you the other guy's worse than I am. So that's the real danger for the Democrats, because Schumer, Speaker Jeffries, Schumer, the Senate leader, are not known for being great communicators. They're just not. And so that's the real challenge. But I've always thought of this as sort of a shameless gimmick, shutting down the government, an irresponsible thing to do. But in light of the current daily atrocities that are being committed by our federal government, I think there's really no other way. So I'm endorsing Ezra Klein's position. I don't think it's something that should be done regularly. I don't think it's something that should be done as an act of fiscal responsibility. It has nothing to do with that. Anyone who's a so-called fiscal, who thinks of themselves as a fiscal conservative, can very easily propose cutting spending on things they want to cut and proposing tax increases to make up the difference. So it's not about that. But the way our laws are written and the way our Constitution is currently construed, it does require Congress, vote in the Senate specifically, voting to increase the debt ceiling. So if this is something that has to happen to get the country to wake up to the fact that we are under siege, I mean, so many atrocities. People forget. I mean, the first thing he did in office was he gave pardons to traitors who stormed the U.S. Capitol, resulting in deaths of human beings, including one Capitol police officer the next day. Everyone likes to forget that. But the so-called Law and Order Party had traitors and rebels do seditious acts against our government, acts of rebellion, and this guy gave them a pardon and did much worse. The actual honest, law-abiding attorneys at the Justice Department who prosecuted these criminals, these rebels, these traitors, he fired those people. And now it's so egregious, they're talking about putting together some fund of compensation to help these poor traitors for how they were abused by having the laws applied to them. I mean, it's utterly sickening, and that's what our government is doing. And while I happen to think we need a federal government and a strong federal government, if it's going to be wasted on things like buying masks for people and terrorizing people in cities by soldiers of their own country that are supposed to be off protecting us from foreign wars, if we got to shut that down, then maybe that is a good thing. So you haven't heard much about it yet. You're not going to hear about it much probably this week. But in another week or two, get ready, because this whole debt ceiling issue, it's a perennial one. It's coming back, and it may have a different ending this time. The Democrats are always the responsible ones. They always do what they always eat their spinach, so to speak. Maybe this is the time they've got to really stand up and say, look, we're not going any further. The Republicans in the Senate and the House have said, Mr. President, we're afraid of you. We'll never stand up to you. You could come to our house, molest our wives and daughters. We would say, way to go, great. You could come put a bullet in our foot or in our left, chop our left arm. We'd say, thank you, sir, may I have another? That is the message Republicans in the House and the Senate have sent Trump. The Democrats have no incentive to do that. So they're going to have to do something in a stronger and more forceful way. Otherwise, goodbye America, goodbye democracy, hello 1940s Italy and Germany. Filtered is brought to you by the following. You don't need a new degree. You don't need another expensive coach. You need the right communication habits, and I'll teach them to you in just a few minutes a day. At MediaTrainingWorldwide.com, I've created the most comprehensive library of online communication and personal development courses anywhere. You'll learn public speaking, media training, persuasion, executive presence, and more. These are the same methods I've taught to world leaders, but now they're affordable and accessible to everyone. You can start for free and upgrade anytime. Go now to MediaTrainingWorldwide.com. Confidence isn't a personality trait, it's a skill, and it's trainable. Most people can't afford a full-time coach, and even if you could, Good luck finding one who's available when you need them. That's why I created the TJ Walker AI clone. It's built on my 40 plus years of real world coaching and training. You get my exact advice, style, and frameworks instantly. Ask it how to handle a tough question, get feedback on your elevator pitch, rehearse your next big talk. This is the next generation of communication coaching. It's smarter than an app, more personal than a course, and always ready. Start using it today at tjwalker.ai. You'll wonder how you ever did without it. Want to become a better speaker, leader, or communicator? Start with the TJ Walker Success Library. It's 5 of my most practical books, covering everything from public speaking to media interviews and persuasive messaging, all for only $9.95. I've trained presidents and Fortune 500 CEOs, and now you can get the same wisdom in a fast, affordable format. Go to tjwalker.com/books and download your copies instantly. Welcome back. We are headed into the grab bag section of the show. The U.S. Open edition of our grab bag, the gatekeeper of glamour at the Open. She is Amanda White, the USTA's Director of International Strategy, Marketing, and Celebrity Management. She runs the Open's invite-only celebrity machine, deciding who's famous enough for premium seats and a blue carpet moment. Her team coordinates arrivals, placements, and social posts to maximize global exposure and grow the sport. Celebrity invites equals marketing strategy. Seats tied to social reach. No to low Q score. That's what's going on at the US Open. Fascinating. So what's the real message here? The message is media, celebrity, pop culture, social media fame. It permeates every aspect of our culture, old culture, new culture, and yes, things like the US Open. When you're watching the US Open and you see the star of Mad Men here, and you see the former frontman for the Police here, it's not an accident. That was coordinated, it was sculpted, it was curated. It's all about getting more and more eyeballs to get you excited. Let's dig a little deeper here. A lot of people seem to think being a celebrity is easy. Oh, you just got lucky. Well, maybe for a few, but it's really a full-time job. When you see a celebrity out and about, that's their job. It's their job to get attention. It's their job to look good. It's their job to attract eyeballs. And I'm not a big watcher of sports on TV, but even me, just yesterday, I don't even know where I was, but there was the US Open, and there was the Don Draper character from Mad Men on the screen watching tennis, and there was Sting. And I thought, well, that's interesting. Yeah, a lot of celebrities like to go, and I used to go to the US Open every year when I lived nearby in New York. It is a fun thing, but they give extra glamour, extra cachet to the event by bringing in high-profile celebrities. And apparently, it's a highly orchestrated event. It's a full-time job someone has, where they are constantly assessing how popular people are, how famous they are, how many mentions do they get in social media, who deserves to get in the president's box. And so, yes, if you're Matt Damon, if you are Brad Pitt, they got in the president's box a few years ago. If you are a lesser tier celebrity, maybe you get invited in a quarterfinal match to watch. But if you want to get into the men's finals, that's the most coveted match, and the women's finals, you better be an A-list celebrity. But here's what I didn't realize. They are tracking these celebrities. They say, sure, we'll send a car for you. We'll give you the VIP treatment. We'll have a special room for you. But they are tracking every second of the way your social media feeds. They want to see how many times you post. They want to see how many likes you get. They want to see how many eyeballs come in. They want to see that you pose in front of the US Open logos. They want to know, they're going to give you the seat so they can then tell the camera operators, okay, go to B12 and you'll see this famous musician or this famous movie star, because that makes the ratings pop up. for television news. It just seems like a big pop cultural event. It turns it into the Academy Awards. So what's the real message here to you and me? Because we can't all go out and just be movie stars. And we can't all go out and get free tickets to the US Open. The real message is I do want you to think of yourself, and it sounds cliche to say it, it sounds almost tacky, but you are a brand. All of us are CEOs of our own company of one person. And it does have an impact on how other people treat us, other opportunities that come to us, where we get invited, what people we meet. And that's why it is important. It's not that you have to become famous, but I do want you to think about, are you sharing your expertise through the media with other people you can help? No, you don't have to be a media hog and beg and climb to get on the Today Show or whatever the top TV broadcast is in your country. And no, you don't have to be a media hog like me and broadcast 7 hours a week and daily. But I do want you to think about at least one day a week sharing some idea, whether in the form of a picture, a text post, an audio podcast, a video, a short form video. Share some form of expertise you have or some way of entertaining people so that you start to build some kind of following, because more opportunities come your way. You might not care about the opportunity of getting free tickets to the US Open. I'm not sure I really do, although I might if it's the Pickleball Open. But I do want you to think about whatever it is you do, life is more interesting meeting more people, getting invited to more places where other people already know you, respect you, like you, and perhaps can share other ideas with you. So that's what I want you to think about. What is your brand? If people are trying, and I'm not suggesting that, you should worry about which one of my next door neighbors do I invite to the backyard barbecue? Are they popular enough? Are they going to retweet this on the neighborhood Facebook group? I'm not suggesting we go to that level. But at some point when you're running a business, you do have to think about how can you attract more attention? We're in an attention economy. Everyone attracts some level of attention, even if it's literally zero. It's measurable. That's what's different about the modern world is everything is measurable. Popularity is no longer an abstract concept. Charisma is not an abstract concept. It is 100% trackable and measurable. And if you work on it, you can, in fact, make yourself more useful to other people and therefore attract more people and therefore attract more opportunities for yourself. I could tell you some of the most interesting times I've ever had is not when I've been on NBC or MSNBC or CNN or Fox. It's when I've been in the green room with those people and met different movie stars and promoters like Don King and supermodels and Republican leaders of the US Senate. These are all people I've met in the green rooms of major TV networks. And I say that not to brag, but just to say, when you're actively trying to communicate to the world, share expertise, reach people, it puts you in a mix of meeting more interesting people, and it can make your own life more interesting. And that's really what I want for you is more opportunities for you, a more interesting life, because ultimately that is what will make you happier, wealthier, sometimes healthier. About. I'm Walker. Have a great rest of your Sunday. See you tomorrow.